Welcome to the Success with Jewelry podcast, where we invite you inside our conversations about business success and marketing for jewelry designers and entrepreneurs.
We're Liz and Laryssa, jewelry marketing experts with a combined 16 years of experience in jewelry marketing and proven track records in helping jewelry brands meet their goals. When you listen to or watch this podcast, you get an intimate and exclusive peek behind the curtain of all the things you wish you could know about earning success in this industry.
Welcome to episode 84. In this episode, Liz and I are talking about what is Meta recommending as best practices these days. And not only that, but how should you be acting on that information? Is it all right for you and your business? So these are kind of some of the things we'll be touching on: threads and how Meta's recommending to engage with it, reels, how Meta's recommending to lean into it and using various reels features, and what the heck should you be doing with all of that? And in the bonus content of this episode, we explain how you can know if your social media strategy is working for you and when you should listen to Meta. To get access to exclusive content as well as direct access to me and Liz, sign up by visiting successwithjewelry.com. Hey Liz, let's get into it.
Let's get into it, and I hope we don't get sued.
No.
Just kidding.
Meta's too worried about pushing threads to worry about suing us.
That's true. That's true. And we aren't necessarily, I mean, to us, we're the top jewelry podcast. I don't know if we really are. Are you guys listening? I don't know. Oh man, we shouldn't say any of that.
It's all fine. It's all speculation.
It's all speculation. But anyway, Meta is going hard on threads.
So hard. Whether or not you're on threads or what, and you may not pay attention to social media news, but there's been like this secret / not so secret, super aggressive push to get users engaging with threads.
Totally. And you see it in like when you're scrolling your feed, how like the threads pop up. And I mean, I understand why. They probably dumped a lot of money into it. When they launched threads, I think 100 million users signed up in the first week or something. I don't have the exact statistic in front of me or the exact details in front of me, but it was wild. Like that first few days of threads, people were excited. And then it dropped
the first few days.
I know, the first few days. The first week. Do you remember when it launched?
Oh, I remember. Yeah, there was like almost this pressure, like, oh crap, I better go get my threads account.
And then I didn't use it. So it launched July last year. And I posted for like a month. And then I didn't touch it again until this spring. I forgot.
I haven't looked at it at all. I mean, I only see those like recommended ones that show up on Facebook and Instagram, but
what's frustrating about that, and this is why I think people aren't using it, is that when I click on a recommended thread to like read more because I'm intrigued, then it takes me to the threads page and then I have to choose which account to go into and it logs you out every time. I don't know if that's just because I have multiple accounts. Maybe it's easier if you only have one account, but so I'm like endlessly like logging into threads. And Laryssa, I know you don't know this because you haven't looked at threads and I manage our Instagram page, but I've been aligning our content with Instagram and threads just to see.
Wow.
I know. I've been posting a lot, but just to see if it makes any difference. And I did our March report. I'm doing our April report. And next month, after we do our report next month, we'll check in with some of the changes we've made to our marketing and we'll share that report just to see. I want to experiment with this. I want to see if it's working.
I love that. Yeah, I wanted to say to your point about the user experience, I haven't ever clicked on those recommended ones, but honestly, I have been intrigued. But the way it's like set up there, I am like, where's this going to take me and how's it going to open? And then I just don't click. So I have a similar experience, even though I'm not actually doing it.
I know they need to merge threads so it's more in the Instagram app. I think then more people would be using it. But when I go on like our Success with Jewelry profile and I'm just looking at our profile page, nothing is happening. I mean, it's like 1,000 facets, who is pretty active on there. There's a few of you out there who listen, who I follow, who are pretty active. But I mean, it's crickets. There's not much happening. And I think that, and maybe I've said this before, but I think the issue with threads is that businesses got there before consumers did.
Mhm.
So when they launched, all these businesses like hopped on it because it was like a new way to reach, a new thing to be doing. And Instagram's been tough for a long time. And it's like, okay, great, a new opportunity. And, but we're not talking to anybody. We're just talking to other businesses.
Yeah, and it's just crazy to see the ways they've been trying to push it. Like they just launched this creator program where they're giving like bonuses for like select creators who engage with threads in a certain way. I don't even really know what that looks like, but clearly they're putting money behind it. And I don't know. It just makes me think this attitude that Meta has that like you can control where people want to be, kind of like that's not really how social media works. That's not how Instagram became what it is. That's not how Reddit became what it is. That's not how Twitter became what it is because people really liked the platform and they told other people about it and it was a fun, interesting experience. You can't like put money behind something and force people to want to like engage with something.
I agree. And I think that, the rise of TikTok is that like normal people were there first doing dances
Yeah.
and just having fun on the platform, and then businesses came later. So I think that that's why that platform was successful and has been successful. So you have to see where people are going. I mean, what a good lesson for our own businesses is like not trying to force things or force where your customer is going to be, but meeting them where they're already at.
I know. Can you imagine that trying to like force people into doing certain things for your business?
Oh man, it's
Crazy.
tough. People create their own habits. And I think it's interesting how, looking at people's Instagram habits now, it's like we're all experiencing this kind of same thing where we're looking at the content, but we're not engaging with it because there's just so much of it. And we're so kind of disengaged just in general. I'm actually listening to this audiobook called, what is it called? But they make a point in it like, do you remember when the internet got less interesting? Like it was really exciting for a while, and then at a certain point, it just got less interesting.
Hmm.
Just to
Does
like
the
be
person have a theory about why that is?
no, they're just talking about their experience.
Okay.
Like it's a fiction book. It's
Oh,
called
okay. I
Birth
see.
Control, and they're like, it's just this one sentence that stood out to me. I don't even know why I'm sharing it here, but it just because I feel that now, like that looking at the internet isn't as interesting as it used to be. Like, years ago, it was so exciting to log on and see what was happening. I mean, even in the like, AOL days of like waiting for your computer to log on. And it was just like there was this excitement of like, what's going on? Who's going to be online? What like blogs am I going to see that are updated and things like that. And now we're at this point of just fatigue where it's like we're constantly being marketed to. And it's our friends, the people we're excited to learn about, like, and see what they're up to aren't as active. And so we're all just kind of disengaged.
Hmm. I got a pang of sadness, Liz.
I know. I did too when it was mentioned in this book because I remember those days. I love the internet. I've always loved computers. I was an early adapt as early as I could be, adapter to the internet, like when my parents would let me. And I was an early adopter to Zynga and MySpace and Facebook and all of those
Yes.
things. And I've always loved social media. I was an early adopter to Twitter and Instagram. And I was a blogger, when like Blogspot was the place to be. And it is sad at how it's just not it anymore. It's not, you can't create those communities and connections the way that you used to, the way that was so authentic. Like as a blogger in 2008, like I still have relationships with people who I just met online, who we've met up in person and gone to
Mhm.
concerts together and things like that. And it was just like that sense of community and ability to build something virtually was so cool.
Yes. The millennial. I mean, nostalgia. Like I feel the same way about it. And it just feels like now You know, that line from Mean Girls where they're like, stop trying to make fetch happen or whatever.
Totally.
That's what I feel like.
This is off topic, but the positive to that, I would say, is that people are more out in person. And I've seen it in my community and in Asheville that people are out and about shopping now
Mhm.
and like going to markets and going, out in the world and wanting to have experiences again, which is the exact conversation we were having when I was working. Like my first role in the jewelry industry was like talking about millennials is like they wanted an experience. So like
Mhm.
a custom piece to come to the studio to learn more about the brand, to meet the artist and things like that. And I think we've kind of circled back to that point, which is not a bad thing.
No, not at all. I love that. There needs to be more of that. And it can be paired with digital experiences too.
Yep, aligning the two, making online and offline kind of feel like merge the two, which is why video content is so great. But yeah, it is different. And we all need to accept that. I think the resistance to the changes, you know, that I think that's what makes it super frustrating for us and designers who are trying to
Yeah,
use the internet.
I agree with all of that. So I,
That was a total tangent.
no, it's okay. But we don't want to be, let's be clear here. I don't want to be fully negative against threads. I think maybe there's a way to benefit it from it. And what Meta is saying that the threads usage will kind of help your overall presence on Instagram, blah, blah, blah. And that is important to some people out there listening. And so maybe we should just mention some of the things we've heard that like Meta is recommending for that in case you want to play around with it. And we'll talk more about whether or not that's like right for you.
Yeah, I think that, you know, well, can get into specifics. From using it, what I'm seeing is that asking for engagement is really helpful. And they're also saying that like engaging with people, responding to people, reposting, quoting, I'm seeing that too from my end. That really helps. Just like going into threads, focusing on engagement. So I'm taking the posts we're doing on success with jewelry and then I'm like tweaking them a little to like ask a question at the end or like ask for engagement
Mhm.
for threads. So that's what you want to focus on there.
Yeah. Also, I've heard like the cross platform too, like sharing something on threads to bring someone to Instagram and thinking about how the two things can be integrated together. Like maybe threads is more of a behind the scenes process thing that leads you to a post on Instagram that is like the finished piece or something like that.
I heard that using audio and video on threads is a good thing too, which you wouldn't necessarily expect
Mhm.
because it's kind of like a text-based platform. It feels like that's what Twitter is too, but they are encouraging, or it seems to be that they're encouraging like including audio or video there.
Yeah, definitely. So let's talk also about the ever frustrating, ever frustrating surface of reels, which no surprise, Meta is saying keep leaning into that. This is a thing we've been hearing since when reels were first launched. What, 2, 3 years ago? I don't even remember now.
Do you remember
But
IGTV? Oh man, I just deleted that app from my phone because you needed a separate app for IGTV.
I remember, yeah.
Yeah, I don't, they're making, I think that the biggest mistake Meta is making is that they're trying to have too many places for people to go. And like Reels does make sense because it's in the app. And so, you stay in the app. People don't want to leave the app.
Yeah.
So Reels makes sense.
It makes sense too why they are continuing to push it because who knows what's going to happen with TikTok. But one thing we do know is people like to consume that kind of content, and Reels is kind of Meta's answer to that. So it's like, well, if TikTok does go away and all those people don't have TikTok anymore, oh, come over to Reels.
Definitely. I think people like it. And the same with like Instagram stories too, is like it's immersive. And that's why people like TikTok. It takes up the full screen. So I think that's one reason people kind of like get sucked in. Like I can't go looking at reels and I don't go on TikTok anymore, but I can't look at reels because then I get trapped in because they keep coming. And I feel like I'm in them.
They keep coming.
Keep coming. They never end.
Stop.
And then it's like an hour. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I just wasted so much time.
Yeah. They're still having best practices for them. I mean, some of them you wouldn't be surprised about, like use the in-app editing tools, like um especially the advanced editing, speed adjustments and stuff like that. Audio, collaborating with other accounts on Reels to co-create content. They say test different lengths of content and see what works for you, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I feel like people are something I've noticed is people are creating very short form reels. Um, even though I keep hearing that like long form content is back in. But so I think I mean, it makes sense that they're saying test the different lengths. And I've
Mhm.
seen people who are very tied in with like, best practices doing just that, of doing like very short and like longer ones. So that's interesting. Um,
And they're recommending hashtag use too.
that is surprising because I haven't heard any recommendations about hashtags in years, it seems
Straight from
like.
Meta. Straight from Meta.
Great from Meta. I like that it's 3 to 8 because actually that's aligned with what I tend to recommend. Is like we don't want to do a big block of 30 hashtags.
Mhm.
That doesn't make sense.
Yeah. So the question is solved. Should you use hashtags?
Three to
Meta
eight.
said it very recently. Yes, use hashtags.
That's really interesting. I think that collaborating, like even if it's not on Reels, even if it's just on posts, is something that's really smart to be doing or thinking about, or like cross promotion in general. Like for example, our episode with 1,000 facets, like us cross promoting, like she got new listeners, we got new listeners, and that's like kind of the biggest bump in growth we've had in a little bit. So thinking about how we can cross promote is definitely something in our strategy.
Mhm. So before we wrap up today and go to the insiders, I want to ask one last question. Meta likes to give general recommendations, and that can, okay, it's great. We're hearing directly from the platform. They're telling us what works, but like, how do you take that and kind of make it work for you, especially if you only have a limited amount of time, energy, resources?
I kind of feel like this is just my opinion. Laryssa might have a different one. But I would say, for the most part, don't worry about the recommendations. Like, if you hear of a good idea that feels like in alignment with what you're already doing or a way you want to expand, use it, try it, do it. But I think that if you're staying consistent, and we talked about this kind of what we think the best practices are with Instagram a few episodes ago, but if you stay consistent and clear in your message, you don't have to worry about all this other, I want to say, nonsense.
Yeah, I mostly agree with Liz. I think, though, be open and be aware, because I think people get into social media ruts where they've just been doing the same thing for who knows how long. And like, you might be resistant to some stuff at first because it's like, oh, now I have to learn a new thing, or this is different from like what I usually do. But every once in a while, there's like a nugget of something that if you try it, it could actually make your content better or help you in a way. So, like, kind of remain open to it, I think.
That's a good point. I like that.
Thanks. So, what are you going to be trying and what will you leave behind? Let us know. Visit successwithjewelry.com. We'd love to know what you're thinking, and we're happy to answer any questions you may have. Thanks for being a part of the community.